There is a force inside you that has been shaping your life long before you ever understood it. A force so powerful that every success, every breakthrough, every blessing, and every closed door can be traced back to it. It is not your background, your circumstances, or your limitations. It is the silent architect behind your destiny, and that force is the word you speak. Every word a person speaks travels further than they imagine. It reaches into their thoughts, their beliefs, their expectations, and eventually into the circumstances they experience. The first keynote teaches that words are seeds, and the moment this truth becomes clear, the way a person speaks begins to change. A seed may look small and insignificant, but it carries a pattern inside it, a blueprint of what it will become. The same is true for speech. When someone repeatedly says they cannot, the seed of limitation begins to take root. When someone declares something always goes wrong, the seed of misfortune grows in the background of their life. Most people speak without understanding that every phrase is planting something in the unseen soil of the mind. The subconscious hears everything, receives everything, and acts on everything. It does not question whether a statement is beneficial or harmful. It simply absorbs. This is why the first shift in personal transformation always starts with the shift in speech. When you realize your words shape your internal world, you become more intentional with what you allow to flow from your mouth. As you speak, you frame your experiences. A person who constantly speaks about stress will find more situations that reinforce that feeling. A person who regularly affirms calmness begins attracting moments of clarity and peace. The mind is always seeking evidence to support the words spoken repeatedly. This is why powerful habits begin with powerful declarations. Anything affirmed consistently is eventually reflected outward. You can see this in people who constantly say they are unlucky. Even when opportunities are near, their mindset filters them out. They simply cannot see what contradicts their spoken belief. On the other hand, someone who speaks abundance, hope, and confidence begins to see possibilities where others see obstacles. Their speech has prepared their mind to notice solutions and pathways waiting to be used. This keynote shows that nothing in life truly happens at random. The seeds we plant become the fruits we live with, so we must choose them carefully. Once a person understands this, every word becomes a tool for creation rather than a reaction to emotion. Words do not only affect the mind, they affect energy, focus, and behavior. When someone says, "I always fail," the statement weakens their effort. They subconsciously give less because the outcome feels predetermined. When someone says, "I always find a way," their energy rises. They work with more creativity and more discipline because their words have prepared them to expect a breakthrough. Speech has the power to either close a person's imagination or unlock it. The most successful people in any field are those who speak about what is possible, even when nothing around them suggests it. Their spoken words become the fuel that keeps them moving forward. This is why intentional speech is not just motivational or spiritual. It is psychological. It shapes your perception, influences your emotions, directs your behavior, and ultimately determines your results. The seeds you plant through your speech grow into the conditions of your life, and once you become conscious of this, you begin using your words to prepare the kind of future you want to experience. The second keynote expands this truth from the mind to the entire universe. Words are not only seeds for the subconscious. They are commands sent into the world. Everything you repeatedly say becomes a signal that shapes what comes toward you. When you speak fear, you draw more experiences that match that frequency. When you speak courage, you attract circumstances that require and strengthen it. The universe responds to conviction, repetition, and clarity. Those who speak in doubt delay their outcome. Those who speak with certainty invite alignment. Many people sabotage themselves by sending mixed commands. They say they want success, but speak about their fears more than their goals. They pray for breakthroughs, but speak as if nothing will change. They desire abundance, but speak lack into every area of life. The universe responds to the dominant message, not the hidden desire. Your dominant speech reveals your true expectation, not just your hopes. When speech and desire contradict, speech always wins because it carries more energy and more repetition. This keynote teaches that speech is not accidental. It is a spiritual law in action. What you speak consistently becomes a request. The universe does not sort statements into jokes, habits, or expressions. It simply receives the signal. This is why complaining is so dangerous. Every complaint sends a command for more things to complain about. Every declaration of gratitude sends a command for more things to be grateful for. Words operate like magnets. They pull toward you the experiences that match their tone and vibration. A person who constantly says nothing ever works out for me does not just express disappointment. They reinforce a command that shapes their future. A person who said everything is aligning for my good sends a message that rearranges events in their favor. Speech can attract or repel opportunities. It can open doors or close them. It can speed up your progress or slow it down. When you see your words as commands, you stop speaking casually and start speaking with intention and clarity. The power of speech becomes especially clear in moments of struggle. When circumstances look impossible, the instinct is to speak fear, frustration, or defeat. But those are the very moments when your words carry the greatest creative power. If you speak defeat, you deepen the difficulty. If you speak possibility, you shift the direction of events. Many breakthroughs happen not because circumstances changed, but because speech changed first. The universe responds to spoken conviction even before physical evidence appears. When someone declares, "I know something better is coming," they create space for change. When they say there is always a solution, the solution begins moving toward them. Speech creates momentum long before the outcome manifests. This keynote teaches that every spoken word is a signal, and every signal shapes what appears in your life. When a person masters this principle, they begin speaking with awareness. Instead of describing negative situations, they speak the outcome they desire. Instead of reinforcing fear, they reinforce faith. Instead of declaring the worst, they declare the best. This practice does not ignore reality, it transforms it. The universe responds to the language of expectation, and your words reveal your expectations more accurately than your thoughts. This keynote encourages you to choose your words with precision, knowing that every phrase carries power. Every statement sends a command, and every declaration becomes a step toward shaping your future. Negative speech creates barriers that most people never see. It begins as a casual thought spoken out of habit, but over time it becomes a pattern that surrounds a person like an invisible wall. When someone repeatedly says they are tired of life, opportunities, or relationships, they are not just expressing a feeling. They are building the emotional atmosphere they must live in. When someone regularly says they always lose or they never succeed, they reinforce an inner script that shapes every decision they make. These words become so familiar that the person no longer notices how often they speak them, but life notices. The subconscious notices. The universe notices. The consequences appear quietly at first as small disappointments or repeated frustrations, but eventually these moments become a consistent pattern, and the person wonders why the same problems keep returning. This keynote teaches that negative speech is not harmless, it is powerful, and its power grows through repetition. Many people do not realize that a negative statement spoken in a moment of emotion becomes an instruction if it is repeated often enough. The mind begins to treat it as a rule rather than an expression. When someone constantly tells themselves they are unlucky, the mind becomes trained to ignore good possibilities because they contradict the rule. When someone repeatedly claims life is unfair, they unknowingly seek evidence to confirm it. The mind does not want to be wrong, so it filters out anything that challenges what you speak consistently. This creates a closed loop where negative words feed negative experiences and negative experiences reinforce negative words. The person then assumes this cycle is fate, but it is actually self-created. The barrier was built sentence by sentence until it became strong enough to guide the environment around them. Negative speech also dims a person's inner strength. Whenever someone says they are not good enough, not strong enough, or not capable enough, they weaken the energy they need to grow. They shrink their potential by shrinking their language. Imagine someone approaching a new opportunity with the phrase, "I will probably fail." Their effort becomes half-hearted because failure already feels certain. Their creativity becomes blocked because they expect problems instead of solutions. Their motivation fades because they believe the ending is already written. On the surface, this looks like low confidence, but often it is simply the long-term effect of negative speech that has grown into a belief. When you speak destructive words long enough, the mind adopts them as identity statements. Breaking these identity walls requires first breaking the speech that built them. Most environments reflect the words spoken within them. Families shaped by constant criticism often produce children who doubt themselves. Relationships filled with blame and negativity become emotionally heavy. Workplaces influenced by constant complaining feel drained. Speech carries an emotional temperature, and people absorb it without realizing it. If someone constantly talks about stress, they increase it. If they constantly talk about obstacles, they invite more. This is not a mystical idea. It is psychological. The brain follows focus. Speech directs focus. Focus directs behavior. Behavior shapes results. In this way, negative speech becomes much more than sound. It becomes a creator of patterns that can last for years, if not changed deliberately. Yet, the power of this keynote is not in exposing the damage, but in showing the possibility for transformation. The moment a person becomes aware of the barriers their own words have built, they gain the ability to take them down. It begins with catching the small phrases spoken without thought. Instead of saying, "I always struggle," they pause. Instead of saying, "Nothing good ever happens," they shift. Instead of reinforcing the old story, they create a new one. This is not pretending life is perfect. It is recognizing that words have played a role in shaping the present and can just as easily reshape the future. Breaking the cycle of negative speech frees the mind from old patterns and makes space for new outcomes that were blocked before. The fourth keynote reveals an even greater truth about speech. It teaches that spoken blessings hold a unique kind of power. They do more than shift personal energy. They invite alignment with forces beyond human effort. When someone speaks a blessing over their day, their work, or their relationship, they open a door for guidance, support, and favor to enter. Speaking a blessing is not simply positive thinking. It is intentionally sending out words that carry hope, clarity, and strength. When someone blesses their path by saying, "Everything is unfolding for my good," they create a mindset that sees possibilities where others see problems. They move with a confidence that something greater is working on their behalf. This creates a harmony between intention, belief, and experience. A spoken blessing can calm an anxious mind. When someone speaks peace into their own life, their nervous system responds. Their breathing slows, their body relaxes, their thoughts become clearer. Words that bless do not just affect the outer world, they immediately affect the inner world. A blessing spoken in the morning sets the tone for the entire day. A blessing spoken before a difficult situation creates strength that may not have been there a moment before. These spoken blessings act as reminders that you are not navigating life alone. They reinforce the belief that support exists even when challenges appear. Spoken blessings also shift how others experience you. When you consistently speak with encouragement and goodwill, people respond with trust and openness. Opportunities flow more easily because people are naturally drawn to those who uplift rather than drain the environment. When you bless others by wishing them success or peace, you cultivate a cycle where positive energy circulates back toward you. Energy is reciprocal. What you speak into the world often finds its way back in unexpected ways. A blessing can soften conflict, strengthen relationships, or attract collaboration. Even in difficult situations, the person who speaks gently and gracefully often finds doors opening that negativity would have closed. There is also a deeper spiritual dimension to speaking blessings. Many ancient teachings across cultures affirm that spoken words carry creative power. When a blessing is spoken with sincerity, it aligns thought, emotion, and intention. This alignment sends out a clear signal that influences outcomes. Someone who says, "I am grateful for the good coming into my life," creates a magnetic pull for more reasons to be grateful. Someone who says, "I am guided and protected," invites clarity in moments of confusion. Someone who declares, "I am open to opportunities," invites doors to appear that were invisible before. Blessings activate spiritual laws that multiply what is spoken. And because of this, even a single blessing spoken regularly can shift the direction of a person's life. This keynote shows that blessings are not reserved for extraordinary moments. They can be woven into everyday life. Speaking a blessing before beginning a task brings focus. Speaking a blessing over your health brings strength. Speaking a blessing over your finances brings alignment with opportunities. Speaking a blessing over your relationships brings harmony. The more natural it becomes to bless, the more natural it becomes to live in a state of openness and expectancy. Blessings strengthen faith and soften fear. They transform environments and elevate emotional energy. They create an atmosphere where good things can grow. And as this practice deepens, the mind becomes trained to look for what is right rather than what is wrong, which changes both perspective and outcome. Identity is shaped long before actions ever begin. People often believe they behave a certain way because of their circumstances, but in truth they behave according to the story they tell themselves about who they are. The fifth keynote explains that words spoken repeatedly form the foundation of this inner story. Every time someone says they are not good with money, they strengthen an identity that avoids financial responsibility. Every time someone says they are always anxious, they reinforce an identity that invites fear. Every time someone says they are not lucky, they adopt an identity that expects disappointment. These statements may seem simple, but identity is built from repetition. A phrase spoken once might pass quickly, but a phrase spoken daily becomes part of self-image, and self-image becomes the compass that directs every choice, every reaction, and every belief. When a person understands that their words shape who they become, they begin speaking with greater awareness. Because they realize they are not just describing themselves, they are creating themselves. Identity grows quietly. A child told they are smart often grows into confidence. A child constantly scolded as difficult or stubborn carries that identity into adulthood. In the same way, adults shape their own identity through silent routines of speech. Someone who says, "I am confident," even while feeling fear, begins to train the mind to act with more courage. Someone who says, "I am capable," even when they doubt themselves, begins to stretch beyond old limitations. This is not about pretending to be something you are not. It is about speaking the version of yourself you are becoming. Words act like blueprints. They sketch the outline long before the structure appears. When someone repeatedly says, "I am disciplined," their habits begin to shift in subtle ways. They wake earlier, work longer, and focus deeper because the identity they affirm reshapes their behavior. A strong identity aligned with positive speech becomes a powerful guide because it influences not only how a person sees themselves, but also how the world responds to them. Identity also determines what a person feels they are allowed to receive in life. Someone who believes deep down that they are undeserving of love will sabotage relationships. Someone who believes they are unworthy of success will shrink when opportunities appear. Someone who believes they are always the one who gets hurt will unconsciously enter situations that confirm this belief. These patterns often begin with speech. Words become the boundaries of self-expectation. When someone speaks worthiness into themselves, they raise the kind of opportunities they accept. When someone speaks growth into themselves, they seek environments that encourage expansion. When someone speaks value into themselves, they stop tolerating situations that drain their peace. Speech does not only shape identity, identity shapes destiny. And destiny begins with the consistent stories a person speaks into their own life. The sixth keynote reveals the continuation of this truth by showing that speech not only creates identity but also brings desires into reality when used with consistent intention. Speaking what you seek, even before you see, it is an act that merges faith with action. Most people wait for evidence before they speak confidently, but the keynote teaches that evidence appears after conviction, not before it. When someone speaks abundance while facing lack, they begin to shift their mindset, behavior, and energy toward possibilities instead of limitation. When someone speaks healing while still feeling weak, they activate inner strength that gradually transforms their condition. When someone declares success even in the midst of obstacles, they begin to think creatively and make choices that lead toward better outcomes. Speech is the first step of creation, and persistence in speech is the fuel that keeps the journey moving. Many people give up on their desires not because the dream is impossible, but because they stop speaking it. They let doubt shape their language, and doubt weakens their direction. When someone repeatedly affirms their goals, they reinforce their vision. They remind themselves where they are going even when circumstances seem unmoved. This consistent alignment strengthens clarity. It sharpens focus. It eliminates distractions. Speaking what you seek helps the mind filter out noise and notice opportunities that match the desire spoken. A person who keeps declaring they are building a better life becomes more aware of choices that support that life. A person who keeps speaking growth begins to identify people and environments that encourage development. A person who continually affirms success begins to walk with a posture that attracts opportunities. Speech is not a wish. It is a signal that guides the mind toward movement. There is a psychological power in speaking consistent affirmations. The brain is wired to follow patterns. When someone repeats a belief, the mind begins constructing neural pathways that match the statement. Over time, these pathways influence decision-making, emotional responses, and everyday habits. This is why consistent speech creates long-term change. It slowly rewires internal patterns, which then reshape external results. Someone who says, "I attract opportunities," regularly begins to recognize opportunities faster because their brain is trained to search for them. Someone who affirms, "I stay calm under pressure," reacts differently in stressful moments because their mind has learned a new identity response. Speaking what you seek is not a one-time act. It is a practice that gradually reshapes the internal world and, as a result, the external one. Persisting in intentional speech also builds resilience. Challenges feel different when someone has already spoken their way into a state of expectation. When adversity comes, the person who's been declaring that everything will work for their good can navigate difficulties with more patience and creativity. Their speech has anchored them in a belief that there is always a path forward. That belief fuels determination. It keeps them from collapsing under temporary setbacks. When they speak possibilities, they stay open to solutions. When they speak strength, they tap into deeper reserves of perseverance. When they speak guidance, they remain alert to subtle signs and opportunities that help them move forward. Speaking what you seek trains the mind to stay hopeful, even when the present moment seems uncertain. There is also a spiritual dimension to speaking what you desire. When you declare your intentions, you align yourself with outcomes that match your words. The universe responds to clarity and consistency. A person who constantly shifts their speech between hope and doubt sends mixed signals, which delays progress. But someone who maintains a steady stream of intentional language creates a clear vibrational direction. They are not demanding perfection. They are simply aligning their inner world with their outer goals. Over time, this alignment becomes a magnet for experiences, people, and opportunities that support the vision being spoken. Speech becomes a bridge between the unseen and the seen, between imagination and manifestation, between intention and experience. To speak what you seek until you see it is a practice of trust. It is choosing to believe in a future outcome before it exists in physical form. It is understanding that every great change in history began as a word, a declaration, a claim. It is realizing that waiting for evidence is a habit of limitation, but creating evidence through consistent speech is a habit of growth. This keynote teaches that transformation begins in language long before it becomes visible. Every declaration is a step. Every affirmation is a foundation. Every repeated statement is a form of preparation. When someone speaks with conviction, they begin to walk in the direction of their words. They begin to act as if the path is already unfolding. They begin to carry themselves with a sense of expectation that moves them closer to the desired outcome. Over time, the world around them begins to shift. Patterns change, people change, opportunities appear that once seemed out of reach. The person becomes aligned with the vision they spoke into existence. The future they once hoped for becomes the present they live in. All of this begins with speech that is consistent, intentional, and aligned with the identity a person chooses to build.